You ever reach that breaking point where you're tired of giving your all to someone who barely even notices you exist? Where you start to realize that chasing her isn't love anymore. It's self-destruction. Because the more you run after what doesn't value you, the further you drift from your own peace. Tonight, we're done chasing. Tonight, we talk about how to emotionally disconnect and take your power back. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, drop a like, and let me know in the comments what city you're watching from. Because this message, this truth, is for every man who's finally ready to stop bleeding for someone who never cared to understand his worth. 1. Realize the power of silence. There comes a point when words lose their meaning, when every explanation, every effort, and every attempt to make her see your worth turns into background noise. You keep trying to prove yourself, thinking that if you just say the right thing, show enough effort, or hold on a little longer, she'll finally understand. But she doesn't, because she doesn't have to. Your effort became predictable. Your presence became guaranteed. And what's guaranteed is never valued. That's where silence becomes your greatest weapon, not against her, but for yourself. Silence is misunderstood by most people. They see it as giving up, as surrendering. But true silence is power. It's the moment when you stop chasing validation and start reclaiming your energy. It's not about ignoring her out of spite. It's about realizing that your energy has value, your attention has weight, and your peace is worth protecting. Every message you don't send, every call you don't make, every urge you control, that's a piece of your power returning to you. When you stop chasing, something strange happens. The energy that once went into trying to make her notice you begins to flow back inward. You begin to see things more clearly. You start to realize how much you've given, how little was returned, and how silence exposes the truth better than any confrontation ever could. Because silence is honest. It doesn't beg, it doesn't plead, it doesn't negotiate. It simply withdraws and lets reality reveal itself. If she valued you, your silence will make her reflect. If she didn't, it will make her comfortable. Either way, you win, because silence forces clarity. It doesn't manipulate, it exposes. It shows who reaches out when you stop reaching. It shows who notices your absence when you stop showing up. And it teaches you that the right person will never make you beg to be seen. Silence also rebuilds self-respect. Every time you resist the urge to chase, you strengthen a part of yourself that's been weakened by attachment. You start to remember that peace doesn't come from being chosen. It comes from choosing yourself. You no longer crave their response. You no longer wait for closure. You learn that silence is closure. Because when you stop trying to convince someone of your value, you're already free. People think chasing is romantic. Movies taught us that persistence wins hearts. But in reality, chasing a woman who doesn't value you only teaches her that she can take without giving, and you'll still stay. It's not love. It's emotional dependence disguised as loyalty. Silence breaks that cycle. It forces your mind to sit in the discomfort of detachment, and from that stillness, strength grows. In silence, your focus returns to yourself. You begin to rebuild. You rediscover what peace feels like when it isn't interrupted by disappointment. You start to remember the version of yourself that existed before you handed your power away. The quiet may feel heavy at first, almost unbearable, but it's in that stillness where your clarity forms. You'll begin to notice how much noise she created in your mind, the late-night thoughts, the confusion, the emotional highs and lows. All of it fades when you stop feeding it with attention. And make no mistake, silence is not weakness. It's self-control. It's emotional discipline. Anyone can react, text, argue, or plead. It takes strength to hold back. It takes maturity to walk away without needing to announce it. The man who learns to master silence is the man who no longer needs to be validated, because he already knows his worth. That's why silence is more powerful than words. Words can be twisted, ignored, or misunderstood. But silence? Silence echoes. It creates space. And in that space, truth grows. You stop trying to be heard and start listening to yourself. You realize that peace doesn't come from her response. It comes from your decision to stop chasing what doesn't want to be caught. Number 2. Detach emotionally, not coldly. Emotional detachment is one of the hardest skills to master because it feels unnatural at first. You've been conditioned to believe that caring deeply means holding on, that love requires constant presence, and that letting go means you never truly cared. But that's the lie that keeps you emotionally imprisoned. Detachment isn't about becoming heartless. It's about learning to feel without being consumed. It's understanding that your emotions are meant to be experienced, not to control you. When you detach, you don't stop caring. You just stop letting someone else's inconsistency determine your peace. Emotional detachment begins when you stop trying to fix what doesn't want to be fixed. You see, connection turns toxic when it becomes one-sided. When you keep showing up, keep giving, keep proving, and yet the energy isn't matched, your emotions become a weapon turned against you. That's when detachment becomes necessary, not to hurt them, but to heal yourself. It's the process of pulling your energy back from a place where it's being wasted. You don't shut down. You just stop pouring into emptiness. You stop investing in what doesn't grow. The key is to detach with awareness, not anger. When you detach out of resentment, you still remain emotionally connected through hate or bitterness. But when you detach out of understanding, you rise above. You see things for what they are, not for what you wish they could be. You accept that sometimes people can't meet you at the depth you offer, not because you weren't enough, but because they were never capable of receiving you. Detachment then becomes clarity, not punishment. It's not about proving your strength to them, it's about reclaiming it for yourself. Emotional detachment also means letting go of the illusion of control. The more you try to change someone, the more you tie yourself to their behavior. You become trapped in their reactions, waiting for their validation, hoping for a version of them that may never exist. Detachment teaches you that love doesn't mean control. It means freedom. You can love someone and still let them go. You can care and still choose distance. Because love without boundaries is self-destruction disguised as devotion. This process hurts because your emotions are real. You miss their presence, their attention, the comfort of what used to be. But you must remember, detachment isn't rejection. It's redirection. Every ounce of energy you spend chasing closure or clarity from someone who won't give it to you is energy stolen from your growth. When you detach, you begin to redirect that energy inward. You start focusing on your peace, your routines, your goals. You begin to rediscover yourself outside of the emotional chaos they left behind. There's a quiet strength that comes from emotional detachment. It's not loud or dramatic. It's calm. You stop explaining your worth. You stop reacting to disrespect. You stop defending your boundaries. You simply remove your energy and let silence do the speaking. That's when you realize how powerful emotional control truly is, because the one who controls their emotions controls the situation. When you no longer react, you break their influence. When you no longer chase, you end the game. When you no longer need closure, you create peace. Detaching emotionally doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop bleeding for people who keep cutting you open. You learn to observe your emotions without obeying them. You acknowledge the sadness, the anger, the longing, but you don't let those emotions dictate your actions. You learn to sit with your pain instead of running back to the person who caused it. That's emotional maturity. That's discipline. As you detach, something shifts within you. You stop asking why they treated you that way, and you start asking why you allowed it. You stop focusing on what they did and start focusing on what you can learn. You begin to recognize patterns, triggers, and weaknesses, not to judge yourself, but to grow stronger. Emotional detachment gives you space to see clearly. It's in that space where healing happens, where power rebuilds, where peace returns. Emotional detachment is not the end of connection. It's the beginning of balance. It's the point where you finally stop fighting for someone's presence and start standing firmly in your own. It's where you realize that love without respect isn't love, and attention without consistency isn't affection. Detachment isn't a wall you build. It's a boundary you honor. It's the quiet decision to stop chasing chaos and start protecting your calm. 3. Rebuild the self she overlooked. There's a version of you that existed before her. A version that laughed without hesitation, moved with confidence, and didn't second-guess his worth. But when someone fails to value you, especially someone you care deeply for, you slowly lose sight of that version. You start bending to fit their expectations, shrinking yourself just to be enough, and dimming your light so they won't feel overshadowed. Over time, You become a reflection of their neglect instead of the man you truly are. That's why rebuilding yourself after emotional detachment isn't just healing, it's resurrection. Rebuilding begins with honesty. You can't rebuild a foundation if you don't admit where it cracked. You have to face the truth about how much you changed to please her. Maybe you became too available, too forgiving, too understanding of someone who gave so little in return. Maybe you silenced your instincts every time something felt off because you were afraid of losing her. But in trying not to lose her, you lost yourself. That realization stings, but it's necessary. Because once you acknowledge what was broken, you can begin to reconstruct who you were always meant to be. Not the version she tolerated, but the version she'll never deserve again. This rebuilding isn't about revenge or proving your worth. It's about rediscovering your own rhythm, the pace, the energy, the peace that comes from being aligned with your purpose. It's about filling the silence she left with movement, with progress, with growth. Every hour you used to spend thinking about her becomes an hour invested into becoming better, sharper, and more grounded. You stop seeking validation from someone who couldn't see your value and start earning respect from yourself. That's when confidence returns. Not because someone approves of you, but because you finally approve of yourself. Rebuilding also means redefining what you tolerate. You start setting higher standards, not just for relationships, but for your life. You begin to understand that being alone isn't loneliness. It's preparation. It's the sacred space where you rebuild the armor she cracked. You start prioritizing habits that feed your mind and strengthen your discipline. You wake up early. You work out. You learn. You grow. Because every act of self-improvement is a silent reminder that your value was never lost. It was just hidden beneath the layers of emotional dependence. The self she overlooked wasn't weak. It was just buried under the noise of wanting to be chosen. But now, you no longer need to be chosen. You're too focused on choosing yourself. That's the shift that rebuilds everything. When you stop asking for recognition and start building your legacy, peace replaces pain. You start to look back at the version of yourself that begged for attention and feel compassion, not shame. You understand why he did it. He just didn't know his power yet. Now you do. Rebuilding also means forgiving yourself. For ignoring red flags, for chasing when you should have walked away, for staying silent when you should have spoken truth. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened, but it frees you from the weight of regret. You can't rebuild while holding on to guilt. You have to let it go. You have to understand that sometimes losing yourself is the only way to truly find who you are. When you rebuild, your energy changes. People will notice. They'll feel it before they hear it. The same presence that once begged for love now radiates self-respect. You'll walk differently, speak differently, think differently. Not because you became someone new, but because you finally returned to yourself. The man who rebuilds doesn't chase, he attracts. He doesn't seek peace, he embodies it. That's why the rebuilding process is sacred. It's not about getting her back, it's about never losing yourself again. Rebuilding the self she overlooked is the ultimate revenge, but not in the petty sense. It's the quiet revenge of becoming untouchable. You no longer move to prove. You move because you can. You move because your energy is too valuable to waste on anyone who doesn't reciprocate it. The more you pour into your growth, the less her absence matters. Because the truth is, she didn't overlook you. She overlooked her chance to stand beside you. But now, that chance is gone. You're rebuilding your kingdom brick by brick, and this time, no one gets to walk in and tear it down. 4. Withdraw attention, redirect energy. Attention is currency. It's the most valuable thing you own because wherever you place it, energy follows. And for too long, you've been investing that energy into someone who doesn't deposit anything back. Every text, every thought, every late-night overthinking session, all of it feeds an emotional loop that drains your strength. You convince yourself you're just showing love, but in truth, you're leaking power. The first step to healing isn't forgetting her. It's reclaiming the energy you've been giving away for free. That begins when you withdraw your attention and redirect it where it belongs, on yourself. When you constantly give attention to someone who takes it for granted, you unconsciously teach them that your energy has no cost. They stop appreciating it because it's always available. But when you pull that energy back, when you stop responding so fast, stop explaining, stop chasing, something shifts. They notice the silence. They feel the void. Because attention is like light. When you take it away, the absence exposes everything. And that's when truth surfaces. The people who only stayed for your energy will leave when it's no longer centered on them. But the beauty of this is, you stop needing their presence to feel whole. Redirecting energy doesn't happen overnight. Your mind will crave the chaos it once called love. You'll have moments where you want to check their social media, send that one last message, or replay old memories just to feel something familiar. But that's where discipline becomes your new power. Every time you resist the urge to give in, you strengthen the muscle of control. You begin to see that attention is a choice, not a reflex. You no longer react to emotional triggers. You observe them. That's how you start breaking free from emotional addiction. Withdrawing attention isn't just about ignoring someone. It's about reprogramming your focus. The same energy you once used to analyze her every word can now be used to build yourself. You redirect it toward your work, your health, your ambitions, your purpose. The energy you used to spend wondering why she pulled away can now fuel your growth. Because the truth is, energy never disappears. It only changes direction. The moment you decide to stop chasing someone is the moment that energy becomes available for transformation. Attention is also emotional investment. The more you think about her, the more power she holds. Even your anger feeds the connection because attention, whether positive or negative, keeps her in your mental orbit. When you withdraw it completely, she fades. And not because you forced yourself to forget, but because your focus is now filled with things that serve you. You realize how much peace exists when you stop feeding a dead connection. You start to feel lighter, sharper, more present. You begin to understand that peace was never gone. It was just buried beneath your misplaced energy. Redirecting energy is also about aligning with purpose. When you focus on growth, your emotions start to stabilize. The confusion fades because purpose brings direction. You start to wake up with intention instead of anxiety. You stop living for her response and start living for your results. That's when power returns. Not in the loud external way, but in the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your energy is finally serving you. You become centered. You stop chasing validation because your actions now validate themselves. The act of withdrawing attention also teaches emotional boundaries. You begin to see that not everyone deserves your focus. You start protecting your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You learn that not every message deserves a reply. Not every memory deserves revisiting. And not every feeling deserves to be acted upon. Emotional maturity is learning when to stop pouring. It's realizing that not everyone who captures your attention is worthy of keeping it. As you redirect your energy, your environment begins to reflect the shift. You start attracting opportunities, people, and experiences that match your new frequency. You'll notice that the same things that once drained you no longer interest you. You stop chasing temporary highs and start investing in long-term peace. Because once your attention returns home, to your mind, your goals, your discipline, nothing external can shake you the same way again. You no longer chase distractions disguised as love. You become grounded, focused, and aligned with something greater than temporary emotion. That's when your energy starts building instead of bleeding. 5. Master the art of peaceful distance. Distance is often misunderstood. People see it as cold, as rejection, as giving up. But true distance is none of those things. It's an act of self-preservation, a way of reclaiming control over your inner world when someone has turned it into chaos. Peaceful distance isn't about punishing anyone. It's about honoring your need for emotional clarity. It's the quiet recognition that sometimes the only way to protect your peace is to step away from what disturbs it. Because not every connection deserves closeness, and not every bond was built to last. Mastering peaceful distance begins when you stop trying to fix the space between you and another person. When someone starts pulling away, most people panic. They chase, they explain, they beg for understanding, trying to close the gap. But what you don't realize is that the more you chase, the wider that gap becomes. Peaceful distance is the opposite. It's choosing to let the distance exist. It's learning to be okay with not knowing, not hearing, not being involved. It's finding strength in stillness rather than desperation in closeness. When you master peaceful distance, you no longer fight for attention. You no longer demand closure or understanding. You accept that silence is also an answer. Distance teaches you things presence never could. It shows you who checks in when you stop reaching out. It reveals who valued you and who valued what you gave them. The truth always emerges in distance because when energy is no longer freely available, authenticity is tested. Those who truly care bridge the gap. Those who don't simply disappear. And that's clarity, the kind that brings peace, not pain. Peaceful distance is also emotional discipline. It means resisting the urge to explain your absence. It's not about ghosting or ignoring someone out of pride. It's about no longer feeling obligated to justify your peace. You stop oversharing your pain. Stop seeking validation. Stop looking for someone to understand what you already know. It's the awareness that peace doesn't need to be defended. It needs to be protected. When you embrace that, you move differently. You speak less, you react less, and you start valuing your energy like something sacred. There's power in detaching gracefully. The loud exit, the angry words, the dramatic goodbye, they all drain you more than they heal you. Peaceful distance, on the other hand, is silent strength. It's when you can walk away without resentment, without bitterness, without trying to prove your worth. You leave quietly because you know peace speaks louder than any explanation ever could. And as you distance yourself, the noise fades. The chaos that once lived in your mind starts to quiet. The constant overthinking softens. For the first time, you breathe without the weight of someone else's inconsistency pressing on your chest. Peaceful distance also transforms how you view connection. You begin to understand that love and proximity are not the same thing. You can love someone deeply and still choose distance. You can care about someone and still recognize they are not good for your mental stability. That realization is maturity, the ability to prioritize peace over attachment. You stop trying to rewrite people's roles in your life. You simply let them be who they are, from where they are. No expectations, no resistance, no resentment. Just understanding. And as time passes, peaceful distance gives you perspective. The emotions that once felt overwhelming start to settle. You begin to see patterns, lessons, and truths you couldn't see while you were emotionally entangled. You realize that the distance didn't break you. It revealed you. It showed you your capacity for patience, strength, and self-respect. It taught you that peace is not found in getting what you want. It's found in accepting what is. The beauty of peaceful distance is that it doesn't close your heart. It refines it. You still feel, but you no longer attach your peace to how someone else feels about you. You learn to love without losing yourself, to give without expecting, and to walk away without hate. You become grounded, calm, and quietly unshakable. That's what makes distance powerful. Not because it separates you from others, but because it reconnects you with yourself. Peaceful distance is not a wall. It's a boundary made of calm. It's the invisible space that keeps your energy safe and your emotions steady. It's the point where you stop fighting for attention and start standing firm in self-respect.